All right, listen, this is out of testimony. Word is on this Bridgegate trial that it's linking Cuomo and Chris Christie to a cover-up. And Rob Astorino, who ran for governor against Cuomo, he's the Westchester County executive, is making a pretty big request here this morning. Rob, thanks for coming on. Good morning.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good to talk to you. And
you too.
First of all, before we get in, I do get a lot from you from time to time when there are big issues. And have you decided on a possible run down the road? Because I got to tell you, your name recognition is far greater today than it was the first time you decided to run.
Well, I'm certainly thinking about it. There's no question. I mean, I think we put down a really solid foundation around the state. I was so happy with how we did throughout central New York and throughout almost all of New York. You know, what people don't realize is we beat Cuomo 49-46 outside the 5 boroughs of New York City.
Yeah.
And when you look at the map, it's really kind of weird. When you look at the map, the counties around New York State, in 2010, when Governor Cuomo got elected for the first time, almost the entire state was blue. He swept everywhere.
Yeah.
And then in 14, despite being outspent $46 million to $6 million, not fun, we turned almost the entire state red, so we took everything back. So, look, the issues that we talked about in 2014 are all coming to light now. They're all coming true, whether it's the economy, whether it's his anti-business attitude, which is driving people, further away from this state. The list goes on. And, of course, the Bridgegate scandal was something that we certainly knew was happening in 2014 when Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, was the chairman of the Republican Governors Association. His primary job was to raise money for Republican candidates, and he failed to do that for us, despite repeated attempts to ask him to do that. Went to Connecticut 5 or 6 times, went to other areas where the Republican was down by a lot, and yet refused to come into New York. And when he was asked about it, he said something that was highly unusual, and that's where everyone started to suspect that there might be something going on between Cuomo and Christie, because he said, we don't get involved in lost causes. Now, you don't say that. That's to torpedo somebody.
Sure. Yeah.
What he could have said is, look, I like Rob, which he and I know each other, we have known each other. I think he's doing a good job, whatever he wants to say, and we're going to watch the race.
Even if he didn't like you.
That's it, exactly. Just stay neutral then if you have to.
Yeah. So you're making a pretty bold request here. You believe that both Christie and Cuomo should resign based on this.
Look, if they colluded, and if what Mr. Wilstein said in testimony is true, that they were going to falsify reports on the New Jersey side, and the New York side of the Port Authority, under the direction of Cuomo, knew about it and would go along with it as a deal between the two to help each other in their re-elections. Christie in 13, and by the New York side staying silent and not hurting Governor Christie, it would help him get reelected. And then the return favor would be the following year. Governor Cuomo would get help from Christie in ways that we just saw, where he would actually hurt the Republican nominee by cutting off money, by saying disparaging comments like that, which gives the impression that it couldn't be won. And if that, in fact, is the deal, then they may have committed, crimes.
Yeah,
I mean, they literally may have broken the law. But more than that, just ethically, these two should step down if that's the case.
You ever see a good game of dodgeball, and you got that one kid there that's just, I don't know how he keeps avoiding it, but it's just being pelted one after another, after another, after another. Sooner or later, they're going to get hit. And I got to tell you, Cuomo's that. The balls just keep flying past his head here.
And he arrogantly continues to move on like there's nothing here to look at. Just keep moving on, folks.
That's right.
And
look over here.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's, another phony press conference to announce some major, wonderful idea that's never going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
And that's what he does around the state. But I think, that works for a period of time. The carnival barker and everything else, it works for a period of time. But But eventually people catch on, and I think that's really what's happening today. People are just so frustrated, whether it's the Bernie Sanders voter or the typical American just looking at what's going on in Washington, where they just get it from both sides of the mouth. The arrows come from all areas, where it's impossible to make it these days. And I think that's what's going on. I mean, I think that's what Donald Trump has certainly tapped into. You look at the Clinton machine, where she has just gotten away with murder. She seriously has gotten away with crimes because the system is rigged. And I think that's what people are looking at with the Cuomos of the world, the machines where they stand for nothing.
Yeah.
There's no principle in them. It's all about transactions and staying in power and accumulating power at the expense of the average person. And that's why I think there's such frustration in America today.
And Christie, of course, now basically the political right-hand man of presidential candidate Donald Trump right now. There's a lot of baggage coming along with Christie. This adding to that, I mean, if he was actually really working against a Republican gubernatorial candidate in nearby New York, how does that affect the Trump campaign?
I don't know if it affects the campaign or the dynamics of the campaign at all. And, if Donald Trump got elected, he'd have to take that into consideration. Look, I fully support Donald Trump. This election is very, very clear, as it is, by the way, in the congressional race near you. Claudia Tenney needs to be elected, period. That is a very important race, and Claudia Tenney will absolutely represent that district in a way that she has represented everybody in the Assembly. She has put forward constructive ideas to move the state forward. She's smart, and more than anything, she doesn't take the BS, and she will stand up, as she has in the Assembly, against power when it needs to be. She is an outspoken critic of Cuomo and his policies, and she will do that in Washington. She's the type we need to go down there and to fix up this absolute mess. But as far as the Trump campaign, they'll do whatever they need to do afterwards to pick the right people. And that's not an issue.
Yeah, it could be an issue for him, though. I mean, this Bridgegate thing. He's been able to deflect it, and boy, if the two, it's one thing, the hug with Obama. I mean, you can talk about the hurricane, you can talk about taking care of your people, but now you're taking care of yourself. And
also, there was what people don't remember is there was about 5 or 6 press conferences in the last 6 weeks or so of the campaign that Cuomo and Christie did together.
Mm-hmm.
Highly unusual, and most were totally unnecessary. Now, look, you got to govern. I understand that. I mean, I have to work with Democrats. I do in Westchester. There's a Democratic county board, and we still, now my 7th year, a budget will be submitted shortly that will not raise taxes again for the 7th straight year. So we work together, but there's also a period of time when it's campaigning, and you're working with your team. And if you just look at what those two did together or for each other, politically, people can make the case that they shouldn't have done it. But if they actually cross the line, cut a deal together, a quid pro quo, in order to protect each other, then that's a problem.
All right, very interesting. We'll see what comes of all of this. So far, the governor's been able to slither away from these. It affected, the guy who's my right-hand man. It affected me over here, but I never knew any of it. This one could tie it to him. That could be really big. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yes, it will. Bill, and thanks for staying on top of it.
Thanks, Rob, for calling in. We appreciate it. Rob Astorino